Hi, this is Anna. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here. In this video, I will show you how to create these super simple, quick and easy plaid backgrounds. These plaid backgrounds are perfect for creating masculine cards. Or if you change up the color palette, it would be a perfect backdrop for your holiday cards as well. For this technique, I would suggest using mini ink cubes. You could of course try using bigger ink pads, but this works much better with the minis. Now let's get started with the basics. Then later on in the video, I will show you how I stepped it up. I took one of the mini ink cubes from my stash. For this, I will be using a dark brown ink. In order to create a fabric-like design, I will use only the edge of the ink cube. I will then drag it across the paper at an angle in a slow and steady motion. To make sure my spacing is as even as can be, I will swipe the ink cube horizontally and vertically right down the middle. I applied even pressure as I dragged the ink cube across the paper. I made sure to start a little off the paper as I swiped the ink pad across. I went back to the vertical line and then swiped another one next to it, with a gap of about 1/4 of an inch between. I turned my paper around just to get a better position. We start off the paper, slowly but steadily swiping it across. It's important to keep a steady speed. Too slow and you won't get a straight line. Too fast and the ink won't have time to transfer on the paper. This is what the finished plaid looks like. Here's another pattern I created, but with a slight variation. First, I will do the same thing I did in the first background panel. I will speed it up a little bit, then slow down when I get to the second part of this design. I had so much fun creating these backgrounds that I could do this all day, just changing up the colors to create different patterns. Now to add the second color. This one is a dark green. But instead of swiping it the same way I did the first color, I will drag the ink pad across the other way to create a thin line inside the gaps. I started a little off the paper and slowly dragged the edge across. I applied very light pressure on the ink pad for a thinner line. If I wanted to have a thicker line, I would press down harder as I swiped it across the paper. Here is yet another variation on the design. This time, I'm creating a plaid using two different colors. I took the first color, a sort of mustard yellow, and swiped it horizontally and vertically. Then I took another color, a light teal, and swiped it on either side of the mustard one. Then I went back to the mustard ink cube and finished it off. Now here is how I stepped up the plaid design. I will add embossed details. I took a mini embossing ink cube and lightly swiped it across the paper, right on top of each plaid stripe. This time, I went a little slower to allow more time for the sticky ink to sit on top of the paper. I will speed this up as I continue with the rest of the pattern. Then I took some black embossing powder and sprinkled it on top of the panel. You can see here that the powder I have is a bit clumpy. That is because I hardly ever use black embossing powder. But for this technique, it works just fine. I'm totally okay with imperfections as it gives it a more authentic fabric look. I took my heat gun, which was already preheated, and started heating up the embossing powder, starting from the back, then moving to the front. You could also just use regular dye ink to add this detail, but I thought using embossing powders would make this a little more special. For the second panel, I wanted to add embossed stripes, but this time with navy embossing powder. This one has also been sitting in my stash for so long that it too started getting clumpy. It still works fairly well though. I have so many embossing powders left unused, so I was excited to use it for this technique. For the third and final panel, I took the embossing ink pad and this time I increased the pressure as I swiped it across the paper. Pressing it harder will create a thicker line. Then I sprinkled marigold embossing powder all over the panel, then heat set it. I just love how the embossing powder makes the plaid look really special. Imagine doing this for your holiday cards. You can use gold or silver to complement a holiday palette. Here are the finished panels. The brown one with the black embossed lines, the olive one with a dark green line and navy embossed details, and finally, the mustard and teal one with a marigold embossing powder. With each plaid panel, I was able to create 2 cards using bold alpha dies. If you'd like to know more about how I created these cards, I have a tutorial in my blog post linked in the description below. I also have another video on creating clean and simple masculine cards, which I will link at the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you were inspired. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed my video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Till next time, bye!